The night on the alien world was heavy and strange. The air was colder than the human expected. The trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves glowing faintly with silver light. Every sound seemed sharper in the silence of the wilderness. He sat near his campfire, its flames giving him comfort but not enough warmth. He was tired after a long day of exploring, but sleep would not come. He thought he was alone on this world. He thought nothing lived near his camp. But then, from the darkness, came a sound he could not ignore. A soft cry, weak and trembling. It was not the cry of the wind, nor the call of a wild beast. It was something smaller, something helpless. The human froze. His hand reached for the small weapon by his side. His eyes searched the shadows beyond. The firelight again. The cry came this time closer. It was the sound of hunger, the sound of pain. He whispered to himself, "Someone, something, is out there." Slowly, he rose and stepped away from the fire. The night wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. The silver glow of alien plants lit his path just enough to move forward. Each step felt louder than it was. Each breath echoed in his ears. Then, just ahead, he saw movement. It was small, no bigger than a child. A cub. Its fur was thin. Its ribs showed clearly beneath. Its eyes glowed faintly with a desperate light. The cub was shaking. Its legs trembled as it tried to stand. Its mouth opened in another cry, a plea for food. The human's heart tightened. He had faced danger before. He had faced hunger himself on long journeys. But this cry was different. It was not a threat. It was a call for mercy. He slowly crouched down, keeping his hands open to show he meant no harm. The cub hissed weakly at first, its small fangs showing, but it was too weak to fight. The human reached into his pack. He pulled out a piece of dried food. It was not much. Only a small share of his supplies. But something inside him refused to turn away. He placed the food gently on the ground and slid it forward. The cub sniffed the air. Its glowing eyes locked on the human. For a long moment, it did not move. It seemed torn between fear and hunger. Finally, its body gave in. The cub stumbled forward and grabbed the food. It ate quickly, each bite desperate. Each sound of chewing was sharp in the still night. The human watched in silence, his weapon still near, but his heart calmer now. He spoke softly, "Easy, little one. Take your time." The cub paused, as if listening. Its eyes met his, and for the first time, the human felt something strange. It was not the look of an animal. It was the look of a child, trying to understand. Minutes passed. The cub finished the food, licking its small paws clean. It no longer cried. But it did not leave either. Instead, it sat a few steps away, staring at the human. The firelight flickered across its face, making its eyes glow brighter. The human felt the weight of the moment. He had given away food he needed, yet he felt no regret. Something deep told him this act mattered more than survival. He leaned back against a tree and sighed, his voice low. "What are you, little one? And why do I feel you are not alone?" The cub tilted its head. A faint sound came from its throat. "I cry this time," but a small, soft growl, almost like a question. The human smiled faintly. He felt no danger now, only curiosity. But as the fire burned lower, he noticed something else. The cub's ears twitched. Its head turned toward the forest, as if listening to a sound too distant for human ears. Its glowing eyes sharpened. Its small body tensed. Then, without warning, it stood and ran back into the darkness, disappearing among the trees. The human was left alone again. The night grew quiet. The only sound was the crackle of the dying fire. Yet his heart was not calm. He knew something had changed. He knew that the cub would return, and he knew, deep inside, that when it returned, would not return alone. He looked into the shadows where the cub had vanished. His hand resting on his weapon, his breath steady but slow. A whisper passed his lips. "What have I just started?" The night gave no answer, only silence, only the weight of mystery, only the promise that the cry in the dark was just the beginning. The morning sun rose slowly over the alien jungle. Its light broke through the silver leaves, painting the ground. With patterns of shadow and glow, the human sat near the fire that had almost burned out. His eyes heavy from a night of little sleep, his thoughts kept circling back to the starving cub. He had fed it. He had seen its weakness and its hunger. But what stayed in his mind most were its eyes. Those glowing eyes had not looked like the eyes of a wild beast. They had looked at him with thought, with meaning, as if they carried a secret. He had faced animals before. He had fought predators before, but never had he seen such eyes. The human rubbed his tired face and stood. He needed food for himself now. He carried his pack and stepped carefully into the jungle. Each sound of his boots pressed against the strange soil. Each movement seemed louder than it should. The jungle was alive, but hidden. Creatures moved far in the distance, yet stayed out of sight. He searched for fruits, plants, anything safe to eat. His mind, however, kept drifting back to the cub. What if it returns? What if it brings danger? He whispered. His instincts told him that he had crossed a line. By feeding the cub, he had touched something more than survival. As he filled a small pouch with alien fruit, he felt it again, that strange feeling of being watched. His neck stiffened. His ears strained for sound. He turned slowly. His eyes scanned the trees. At first, there was nothing, only the quiet whisper of leaves in the wind. Then, in the corner of his vision, he saw it, the cub. It stood at the edge of the trees, staring at him. Its glowing eyes locked onto him with sharp intensity. It did not move closer, but it did not run either. Its body seemed stronger than before, as if the little food had brought it back from the edge. The human crouched slowly, his voice calm. "You came back." The cub tilted its head. Its glowing eyes narrowed as if studying him. He reached into his pack and pulled another small piece of dried food. He placed it gently on the ground before him. Then he stepped back, showing he meant no harm. The cub hesitated. Its paws shifted in the dirt, its glowing eyes never blinking. It walked forward slowly, its movements graceful but cautious. It sniffed the food, then looked up at him again. It was almost as if it was waiting for permission. The human nodded softly. His lips curved into a faint smile. "It's for you." The cub began to eat, but slower this time, not desperate like the night before. Its glowing eyes lifted often, watching him as it chewed. The human felt something stir inside him. It was not fear, not pity, it was connection. The cub was not simply an animal anymore. It was a mind, a spirit, trying to understand him. When the food was gone, the cub did not leave. Instead, it sat down just a few steps away, its glowing eyes fixed on the human like two small moons. The human sat as well. Their silent staring lasted long, each minute heavy with meaning. Finally, the human spoke softly. "You're not ordinary, are you?" The cub's ears twitched. Its glowing eyes widened faintly, almost as if it understood his words. The human's breath caught in his chest. He felt a shiver. It was impossible, but real. There was intelligence in those eyes. The sun climbed higher, the heat pressed down. The human knew he needed to return to his camp. But when he stood, the cub also rose, its glowing eyes never leaving him. It began to follow, its steps quiet but steady. The human shook his head in disbelief. "You're coming with me." By the time he reached his camp, the cub was there too. It sat near the fire as if it belonged. The human cooked a small meal, the smell filling the air. The cub sniffed but did not beg. It only stared, watching each move, its glowing eyes sharp, questioning, learning. When the human ate, he shared another piece with the cub. It accepted slowly. Its eyes softened for the first time. They no longer glowed with hunger alone. They glowed with something warmer trust. The human leaned back. Staring at the cub with quiet wonder, he whispered, "Your eyes? They're not just animal eyes." The cub tilted its head again, and in that moment, the human felt a chill. It was not a cub's stare anymore. It was something older, something powerful. Hiding within a small body, as night returned, the cub curled near the fire, its glowing eyes half closed. The human should have slept, but he could not. His heart was restless, his thoughts heavy. He kept replaying that stare in his mind. He realized the cub was not simply surviving, it was watching him, studying him, as if he was the one being tested, and deep inside, the human felt the weight of a truth he did not want to accept. Those glowing eyes belonged to something far greater than he had imagined. The jungle outside grew quiet again, but the silence no longer felt empty. It felt alive. It felt as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The human knew this was only the beginning, and soon he would learn what truly stood behind the cub's strange eyes. The human thought he was beginning to understand the cub. For 2 nights it had come to him. For 2 nights he had given food, and each time, those glowing eyes seemed to look deeper into his soul. He had started to feel safe. He had started to believe that maybe the cub was his only companion on this strange world. But safety was an illusion. The jungle was never truly silent. And that night, the silence broke in a way that froze the human's heart. It began as a distant thud, so faint he thought it was his imagination. Then another, louder. The ground beneath him shook. The fire trembled, sparks jumping into the air. The human's hand went to his weapon at once. His eyes darted into the darkness of the trees. The cub was there, sitting close to the fire. But now its ears rose sharply, its body stiffened, its glowing eyes widened. It did not cry, it did not growl. Instead, it lowered itself to the ground, tail flat, as if in submission. The thuds grew heavier. Like footsteps far larger than any man, the jungle seemed to bend under the weight. The silver leaves shook as if pushed by an invisible hand. The human's chest tightened. He whispered under his breath, "Something is coming." The cub looked at him, its glowing eyes filled with fear, but also with something else, expectation. It did not run, it did not hide. Instead, it crept closer to him, pressing against his side, as if it knew he would need to be seen with it when the presence arrived. Then, from between the trees, a shadow moved. At first, it was only the sound, the crack of branches breaking, the low rumble of breath. But then, in the faint glow of fire and moonlight, the shape appeared. A towering figure stepped into the clearing. Its form powerful and graceful, like a predator built for both strength and beauty. Muscles rippled beneath striped fur that shimmered under the alien light. Its eyes glowed far brighter than the cub's, golden and fierce. The human froze, his breath caught in his chest. His heart pounded like a drum. He had expected a beast. But what stood before him was something far greater. The cub rose and let out a soft sound, not of fear, but of recognition. The figure stepped closer, and at last the fire revealed her fully. She was a tigress-like alien, tall, strong, and majestic, her features sharp and wild. Yet her movements were smooth, almost hypnotic. She radiated danger. But there was also elegance in every step. Her glowing eyes locked onto the human, and in that instant, he understood. She was the cub's mother. The cub ran to her, pressing its small body against her massive legs. She looked down at it, sniffing, inspecting. Her gaze softened for a moment when she saw the cub alive and healthier. Then, slowly, her golden eyes rose again, fixing on the human. The human's throat went dry. He kept his weapon ready, but he knew it would mean nothing if she attacked. He would be finished in a heartbeat. Still, he stood firm. His instincts, screamed at him to run, but something deeper told him not to. The tigress's mother stepped closer. Her presence filled the clearing like a storm. The firelight danced across her striped fur. Her muscles moved like coiled steel, yet her head tilted, ever so slightly. Her glowing eyes studied him with a sharp intelligence. The cub looked up at her, then back at the human. It nudged her leg softly, almost like a child pushing a parent forward. The human saw it clearly. The cub was showing him to her. It was presenting him, the stranger who had given food. The tigress's mother lowered her head slightly, her nostrils flared, her breath hot as it reached him. The human's body stiffened, but he did not step back. His voice broke the silence, low but steady. "I mean no harm." For a long moment, nothing moved. The night itself seemed to hold its breath. The tigress mother stared into his eyes, searching. Testing then, slowly, she shifted her gaze to the cub. The cub purred softly, leaning against her. Her ears flicked, and for the first time, her shoulders relaxed. The human exhaled. Not realizing he had been holding his breath, but he knew the danger was not over. The tigress's mother did not attack, but she had not accepted him either. He felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff. One wrong move, and he would fall. The cub padded back to him and sat at his feet. Looking up at its mother, the human could almost feel the meaning behind the act. The cub was placing him under her judgment. It was saying, "This is the one who fed me." The tigress mother's eyes narrowed. Her tail lashed once in the dirt. Her body lowered slightly. Not an attack, but in a position of testing. She circled him slowly, her glowing eyes never leaving his face. Each step made the ground tremble again. The human stood still. His heart thundered. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs held firm. He understood this was not just a meeting, this was a trial. The cub purred again, louder now, its glowing eyes full of trust, and for the first time, the human thought he saw something change in the tigress mother's face. Her gaze softened, not fully, but enough. Enough to show that maybe, just maybe, she would spare him. But deep inside, he also knew this was only the beginning. He had not just fed a starving cub, he had stepped into a bond that tied him to something far larger, far more dangerous, and now, as the tigress mother's golden eyes burned into his soul, the ground still trembling under her weight, he realized his small act of kindness had called forth a queen of predators. The clearing was silent. The fire cracked softly. But even its sound felt small compared to her presence. The tigress mother stood tall, her glowing eyes fixed on the human. Her body was both terrifying and graceful. Strength and beauty woven together. The human had seen predators before. He had fought creatures stronger than himself, but nothing compared to this. She was not only a beast of the jungle, she was something more. Her movements carried power, but they also carried meaning. Each step was measured, almost regal. The cub pressed close to her legs, looking up at her with trust. It purred softly. Its glowing eyes turned toward the human, as if begging her to see what it saw. The tigress's mother lowered her head slightly. Her golden eyes shifted from the cub to the man. The human's breath grew shallow. He whispered under his breath, "So you are the mother." His words were quiet, but the moment was heavy. He could feel her judgment pressing on him, weighing him down. She moved closer. Her fur caught the firelight, shimmering like molten gold in shadow. The ground seemed to bow beneath her weight, yet her movements were smooth, hypnotic, as if each step was a dance. She stopped only a few feet away, her breath hot against the air, her glowing eyes piercing. Straight into his, the human gripped his weapon tightly, but he did not raise it. He knew it would mean nothing. He had to show courage. He had to show he was no threat. Slowly, he lowered his weapon to the ground and spread his hands open. His voice calm but steady. "I helped your cub, that is all. The tigress mother tilted her head, her golden eyes narrowed, her ears twitched at his voice. She leaned closer, her nose brushed the air near him, sniffing, testing. His body was stiff. But he did not move. The cub let out a small sound, urging her gently forward. Then something unexpected happened. Her gaze softened, just for a heartbeat. The burning fire in her eyes dimmed, replaced by something else, something thoughtful. She looked at her cub, alive and fed. Then back at the human, her lips parted. And a low sound rumbled from her chest. Not anger, not threat, something closer to acceptance. The human swallowed hard, his mind raced. He whispered again, "You are not just a beast, are you?" And deep down, he knew the answer. The tigress's mother sat slowly, lowering her body to the ground in front of him. Her glowing eyes never left his. The movement was strange, unexpected. It was not submission, but it was not attack either. It was a gesture of meeting, of recognition. The cub purred louder, pressing itself between them, almost in joy for the first time. The human noticed the details of her face, the sharp lines of her jaw, the way her fur framed her glowing eyes, the smooth rhythm of her breath. She was dangerous, yes, but there was also elegance. A beauty wild and untamed. She was a predator. Yet she was more than that. She was a queen of her kind. The human felt his chest tighten, not only from fear, but from awe. He had expected claws and fangs. Instead, he found himself staring at intelligence, at mystery, at something that drew him in, even as it warned him away. The tigress's mother leaned closer. Her breath brushed his skin. Warm and steady, he held his ground. His pulse thundered in his ears. Her glowing eyes narrowed, as if searching his soul. For a long moment, neither moved. Only the fire cracked. Only the cub purred. Finally, she pulled back slightly. Her head turned toward the jungle. Her ears rose. She was listening to something beyond. Then she looked at the human again. Her tail flicked in the dirt, a signal. A gesture, an invitation. She wanted him to follow. The human frowned, his voice low. "You want me to come?" He could hardly believe it, but the cub bounced on its small legs, tugging at his sleeve, urging him to rise. The tigress mother stood, towering again. She turned and began to move into the jungle. Each step, silent yet powerful. She did not look back, but the cub did, its glowing eyes filled with trust. The human hesitated only a moment. Then he stood. He gathered his pack and followed. The cub ran ahead, keeping close to its mother. The jungle swallowed them in silver light and shadow, the ground soft beneath their feet. As he walked, he realized something deeper. He was no longer just a traveler on this world. He was being led into a secret, into a bond he had not asked for, but could not refuse. The tigress's mother had seen him, judged him, and now she was pulling him into her hidden life. His heart raced with fear and wonder. Each step into the jungle felt heavier. Each glance at her graceful figure reminded him that she was no ordinary creature. She was strength, she was beauty, she was danger, and yet he followed willingly. The cub purred as it ran back to him, brushing against his leg before running ahead again. The human smiled faintly, whispering, "You trust me too much, little one." But deep inside, he felt something powerful rising. A connection stronger than words, stronger than fear. And as the tigress's mother led him deeper into the unknown, the human realized he was walking into a story far greater than his own. A story that had begun with a starving cub, but now bound him to the will of an alien queen. The jungle swallowed them in silver light and heavy shadows. The tigress's mother moved ahead with a grace that was both terrifying and beautiful. Her body flowed like a storm given form, yet each step was silent, controlled. The cub bounced between them, sometimes at her side, sometimes running back to tug the human forward. The human followed, his heart beating hard. He had no idea where she was leading him. Every step felt like a choice. Every breath felt like a test. He carried his pack close, but his weapon hung. Untouched, he knew it would mean nothing against her. He whispered under his breath, "What have I gotten myself into?" The tigress's mother glanced back once, her golden eyes flashing in the half-light. There was no anger there, only judgment and something deeper. Her gaze was like a command, "Keep walking." The human obeyed. The cub purred happily, unaware of the tension pressing on him. The path narrowed, twisting between towering trees. The silver leaves whispered in the wind. Strange shapes moved in the distance, eyes watching from the shadows. The human felt them, unseen but present. He realized he was being led into territory not meant for outsiders. His skin prickled with warning. Yet still he followed. At last, the trees opened into a wide clearing. The ground dipped down into a hidden valley, glowing with faint blue light from underground streams. In the center stood a great stone structure, half cave, half temple. The tigress's mother stopped at its edge. Her head lifted high, her chest broad. The cub pressed against her side and purred louder than before. The human froze, his breath caught in his throat. Around the den, other shapes moved. Large, silent figures stepped from the shadows. They were, like her, though smaller, tigress-like beings. Their fur striped, their eyes glowing. They bowed their heads slightly as she entered. Not a sound escaping their throats. The human's chest tightened. He realized the truth. She was not just a mother. She was a leader, a queen among her kind, and he had been invited into her most sacred place. Every eye turned toward him. The other tigress beings did not growl or strike. They only watched, silent and sharp. Their judgment pressed on him like a weight. His legs wanted to tremble, but he forced himself to stand tall. The tigress mother stepped inside the stone den, her movements powerful, yet almost regal. She turned, her head slightly, her glowing eyes flicking toward him. The meaning was clear. She wanted him to follow. The cub tugged at his sleeve, urging him forward. The human hesitated. His instincts screamed danger, but the pull of the moment was stronger. Slowly, he stepped into the den. The air inside was cooler. The stone walls were marked with glowing patterns, etched in strange symbols. The light reflected off the tigress mother's fur, making her seem even more radiant. The cub padded ahead and curled on a soft place near the center. Watching with eager eyes, the tigress mother sat close. Her eyes never leaving him, her body lowered in a strange mixture of calm and control. The human sat too, careful not to move. Too quickly, he could feel the weight of the other watchers outside, their glowing eyes fixed on him. She leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes locked onto his. The human's breath slowed. His mind whispered that he was standing at the edge of something that could not be undone. He whispered, "Why me? Why bring me here?" The tigress mother's answer was not in words, but in presence. She stretched her paw forward, claws hidden. It brushed the ground between them, a line drawn, a challenge, or an invitation. The cub purred louder, as if urging him to understand. The human slowly extended his hand. His fingers brushed the stone near hers. Not touching, but close. Her golden eyes narrowed. Her breath warmed the space between them. She was testing him, seeing if he would fear. Seeing if he would break. He did not. He held his ground, his hands steady. For a moment, her gaze softened, and her ears flicked as if she approved. Then she leaned back, her tail swept across the ground. She turned toward the cub and pressed her nose gently to its head. The cub purred like thunder. Then she looked at the human again. Her glowing eyes burned with meaning. She had allowed him into her den, into her world. The human felt the truth settle in his chest. He was not a guest. he was not a prisoner either. He was something in between, chosen, tested, invited. The silence stretched. Outside, the other tigress beings remained still, waiting. The air was heavy with expectation. The human knew the meaning. He was no longer free to walk away. He had been given a place, and now he would have to prove himself worthy of it. The cub leaped into his lap, curling with trust. Its glowing eyes soft with joy. The tigress mother's gaze lingered on that sight. For the first time, her lips parted in a sound almost like a low, soft growl of approval. The human felt his chest tighten. He had fed a starving cub in the dark. Now he sat in the heart of a predator queen's home, surrounded by her kind, invited but not yet accepted. The danger was not gone, it had only begun. And as the tigress mother's golden eyes held his, he knew one truth. He was no longer simply surviving. He had stepped into a bond, into a test, into something greater. The air inside the stone den was heavy. The human sat still, the cub resting in his lap. Its soft purrs echoed faintly against the glowing walls, but outside, the presence of the other tigress beings pressed on him like a storm waiting to break. Their glowing eyes never turned away. Their silence carried judgment sharper than any blade. The tigress's mother sat across from him, her golden eyes steady, her tail flicking slowly across the stone floor. She did not move to attack, but she did not fully relax either. It was as if she was holding the entire moment in balance. Her gaze made it clear, the decision of what came next would not be hers alone. It would be shared. A low growl rose from the entrance. One of the tigress warriors stepped forward, its body lean but strong, its stripes darker, its eyes burning with suspicion. It padded closer, circling him. The human's hand twitched toward his weapon, but he stopped. He knew one mistake would end him. The cub lifted its head from his lap and chirped softly. A pleading sound. The warrior's eyes flicked to the cub, then back to him. Its growl lowered, but the suspicion remained. It circled once more, then stepped back, letting another come forward. One by one, more of them approached. Some only sniffed the air around him. Some bared their fangs in warning. A few swiped their claws close to his body, never striking, but showing how easy it would be. The human kept his heart steady. He did not flinch, he did not run. The tigress mother never moved. She only watched, her eyes sharp, her chest rising and falling in calm rhythm. She was letting them test him, letting them decide if he was worthy. At last, the growls faded. The warriors returned to their places. But their judgment was not complete. Instead, they lowered their heads slightly toward the tigress mother, waiting. The air was thick, the silence sharp. Then she rose, her body powerful, her shadow filling the den. She stepped closer to the human, each movement heavy with meaning. The cub pressed itself tighter into his lap, as if afraid of what might happen. The tigress's mother stopped only a few feet away, her golden eyes locked onto his, her breath warm as it brushed his skin. Then she extended her paw slowly, pressing it against his chest. Not claws, not violence, just weight, just presence. The human's breath caught. His body stiffened, but he did not push her away. He placed his hand gently over her paw, steady and calm. The cub purred louder, its small body vibrating against him. The den was silent. The other tigress beings watched, their glowing eyes unblinking. The moment stretched long. Then the tigress mother withdrew her paw. She sat back, her gaze softer now. The air shifted. The weight of danger lessened. The human realized what had just happened. She had tested his courage. She had placed him under her judgment in front of all her kind. And by not resisting, by not showing fear, he had passed. But the trial was not only about courage, it was about trust. The tigress's mother rose again and turned to the cub. She nudged it gently toward him. The cub crawled into his arms, purring loudly, its glowing eyes shining with joy. The tigress mother looked back at her people. Her golden eyes narrowed. A deep growl rumbled from her chest. Not anger, but command. The other tigress beings lowered their heads. One by one, their tails swept across the ground. Their growls softened into purrs. The tension broke. The human felt it, the shift from threat to something else, something sacred. He was no longer just an outsider. He had been given a place among them. The cub curled against his chest, its small body warm. The tigress mother sat near, her golden eyes softer than before. She leaned slightly closer, her presence no longer crushing but protective. The human's chest tightened, not with fear, but with awe. He whispered softly, "You trust me now," the cub purred in reply. The tigress's mother tilted her head, and for a moment, the corners of her mouth lifted in. A gesture almost like a smile. The human looked around the den, the glowing walls, the silent watchers. The queen before him, he realized how far he had come. He had been alone in the dark, only a traveler, fighting for survival. Now he was sitting among predators who had accepted him. His kindness to a starving cub had carried him into their trust. But trust was not safety. He knew this was not the end. It was the beginning. He had entered their world. He had been judged and allowed to stay. But what would they ask of him now? The tigress mother rose once more, her body tall, her gaze sharp. She turned toward the depths of the den. Her golden eyes flashed as she looked back at him. A silent command followed. The cub wriggled in his arms, eager, purring louder. The human stood, his legs steady, though his heart raced. He whispered under his breath, "This is only the start." And as he followed the tigress's mother deeper into the unknown, he felt the weight of a truth pressing down on him. He was no longer just a man in a strange world. He was now part of something larger, bound by trust, bound by beasts, and bound by a queen whose eyes burned with both danger and destiny. The den grew darker as the human followed the tigress mother deeper inside. The glowing walls faded into shadow, only the golden fire in her eyes guiding the way. The cub purred in his arms, warm and trusting. Its presence gave him courage. Yet his heart pounded hard. He knew something important waited ahead. Something final. At last, they entered a vast chamber, larger than any he had seen. The ceiling rose high above, covered in strange markings. Glowing faintly with ancient light, the air was heavy. Thick with the scent of earth and power, the tigress's mother stopped at the center. Her body tall, her presence commanding, the other tigress beings gathered along the walls, silent, waiting. Their eyes glowed like stars in the dark. The human stood before her, his breath steady but heavy. He felt the weight of all their gazes. He felt the judgment of an entire people pressing against him. The cub looked up at him with innocent trust. But he knew this was not about the cub anymore. This was about him. The tigress mother stepped forward. Her golden eyes locked onto his, her movements slow, deliberate. She circled him once, her tail brushing the ground. Her body radiated strength, but her eyes held something more, a decision waiting to be made. She stopped in front of him. Her massive paw rose, and for a moment, the human thought it would strike, but instead, she pressed it gently against his chest again. Her claws hidden, her weight steady. The human did not move. His hand covered hers as he had before. His heart thundered, but his body remained firm. The cub purred louder, pressing itself between them, its glowing eyes shining with joy. The tigress mother looked down at it, then back up at the human. A deep growl rumbled from her chest, not of anger, but of declaration. The other tigress beings responded at once. Their growls rose together, low and thunderous. The chamber vibrated with sound. It was not a threat, it was recognition. They were witnessing a choice. The tigress mother leaned closer. Her golden eyes burned into his for the first time, her head lowered before him. Her powerful body bent, not in weakness, but in ritual. The human's breath caught. He realized what it meant. She was offering him acceptance. The cub chirped happily, pressing its head against his chest. The tigress mother held her position, waiting, testing, inviting, slowly, carefully. The human lowered himself. He placed his hand on her head, his touch steady. His voice a whisper, "I accept." The chamber shook with sound. The tigress beings roared together, their voices echoing like thunder. The cub purred so loudly it filled the air. The tigress mother lifted her head, her eyes softer now. Her golden fire no longer burned with suspicion, but with belonging. The human realized the truth. He had not just been accepted into their trust, he had been chosen by the tigress mother herself. She stepped closer. Her body brushed against him, warm and powerful, her breath close. Her presence overwhelming. It was not simply gratitude. It was something deeper, something primal. The cub's trust had led her to him. And now she claimed him as part of their bond. The other tigress beings lowered themselves, tails sweeping across the ground, their glowing eyes no longer sharp with suspicion. They bowed their heads toward him, acknowledging the choice of their queen. The human felt a weight lift from his shoulders and another settle in its place. He was no longer alone. He was no longer just a traveler on an alien world. He was part of a family, a pack, a tribe bound by blood and trust, but more than that. He had gained the respect of a queen. The tigress's mother sat close, her golden eyes never leaving his. Her gaze carried both danger and promise. Her presence filled him with fear and awe. And yet, there was something else hidden in that gaze. Something almost tender, almost seductive. The cub curled in his lap once again, its glowing eyes soft, its purr steady. The human stroked its head gently, his voice low. It all began with your cry in the dark. The tigress mother's ears flicked at his words. A faint sound rose from her chest, almost like approval. The chamber grew quiet again. The roars faded. The glowing walls pulsed softly. The tigress mother stood and turned to her people. A low growl rumbled from her throat, commanding. The others responded by bowing lower, their voices softened. Their eyes fixed on him with new respect. She turned back to him, her golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. For a moment, she stepped closer, her face near his, her breath hot against his skin. He held his ground, his heart raced, her gaze locked onto his, and he felt it. He was hers now. Claimed by her choice, the cub purred louder. Pressing its small body between them, the tigress mother leaned back, her gaze softer. For the first time, the human saw something in her eyes he could not name. Something beyond danger, beyond power. Something that felt like belonging. He whispered to himself, almost in disbelief, all this 'cause I fed a starving cub. And in that moment, as the chamber of glowing walls held witness, the human knew his life had changed forever. He had not just saved a child. He had earned the trust of beasts. He had been chosen by a queen.